I was sitting at my desk last week, long after all the other staff had gone home for the evening, when I heard a strange sound. So I listened longer, but it stopped. 10 minutes later, there it was again. A faint, scritchy, scratchy scrambling, first in the walls and then up over my head. I listened as those unseen mice scampered back and forth, and I started to plan their eradication. Writing myself a note to ask the sexton to put out mouse traps around the parish house. This is something on my to-do list that I haven't yet accomplished. In fact, I don't know that I will. For I've been in the office long into the evening almost every night since, and I've not heard even the faintest mouse noise or seen any of those telltale evidences of their existence. It's caused me to doubt myself. I don't know if the mouse scurrying in the walls was real or merely a manifestation of the long list of workday anxieties that had morphed into uncompleted tasks under the darkness of night. But it got me thinking. We live as part of a complex ecosystem, with many unseen and unnoticed creatures silently living with us. There are all sorts of bugs that clean up our spilled messes, while dust mites consume the dead skin that flakes off our bodies. Indeed, there is a whole range of things that live on and inside of us, tiny bacteria that help us digest our food. We don't live just in neighborhoods. Whole neighborhoods live within us. Of course, I'm not only speaking literally, but metaphorically as well. This was brilliantly portrayed in the 2015 Pixar film Inside Out. But the movie almost didn't get made. In 2010, celebrated Pixar director Pete Docter had decided to make this film about a wild and woolly emotions of an 11-year-old named Riley. He knew the rough outlines of the story he wanted to tell. The film would open with Riley uprooted from her Minnesota hometown and plunked down in a new house and a new school in San Francisco, while also caught in the emotional storm of incoming adolescence. So far, so good. But Docter faced a creative puzzle. He wanted to depict Riley's feelings as lovable, animated characters running a control center inside her brain, shaping her memories and her daily life. But which feelings? Psychologists told him that we have up to 27 different emotions in the human range. But you can't tell a good story with so many different characters running around the control room. Docter needed to narrow it down a bit and to pick one emotion as he considered a few different emotions for the starring role. Then he decided to place fear at the center of the movie, alongside joy. Partly, he says, because fear is funny. He also considered sadness, but that seemed too unappealing. Docter had grown up in Minnesota, where the sanguine norms were clear. The idea that you'd cry in front of people was very uncool. But 3 years into the development of the film, with the dialogue already done and the movie partially animated, the gags with fear already in place, and some of them quite inspired, he realized that something was wrong. Docter was scheduled to screen the film in progress for Pixar's executive team, and he was sure it was a failure. The third act simply didn't work. According to the film's narrative arc, Joy should have learned a great lesson by that point. But fear had nothing to teach her. At that point in his career, Docter had enjoyed 2 mega successes, the movie Up and Monsters, Inc. But he started to feel that those must have been flukes. I don't know what I'm doing, he thought. I should just quit, pack it up, go home. His mind spun into dark daydreams of a post-Pixar future in which he'd lost not only his job, but also his career. He went into preemptive mourning. The thought of living outside his treasured community of creatives and business mavericks made him feel like he was drowning in sadness. And the more despondent he grew, the more he realized how much he loved his colleagues, which led to his epiphany. The real reason for emotions, for all our emotions, is to connect us. And sadness, of all the emotions, was the ultimate bonding agent. I had an idea, he said, that we need to get fear out of there, and we need to get sadness connected with joy. A strange thought initially. But this Oscar award-winning film allows us to see that we cannot, no matter how tempting it may be, dispatch with or bottle up our sad or inconvenient feelings. We can't eradicate those nagging dark feelings that run around the back recesses of our hearts or our brains like resident rodents. No, we have to sit with them. We have to welcome them as friends, for they serve a purpose. They are proof that we are connected, or that we risk losing connection. Of course, I can't imagine the feelings that Joseph was experiencing when he heard the troubling news that his betrothed wife, Mary, who he had not lived with yet, the text is clear, is pregnant. I imagine that he too wanted to put anger or fear as the lead character in his emotional narrative. Initially, he listened to them, and he knew he had to draw a line between himself and this complicated woman, Mary. So he resolved to build a wall to keep himself safe and to part ways with her, quietly though, to respect her dignity. Once he made up his mind, I imagine he went to bed, saddened and depressed, knowing what he'd have to do the next day. And as the case for most of us, when we know that a big day tomorrow awaits, especially a sad and depressing day, he didn't sleep soundly, with so much unresolved in his heart. No, he dreamed. Some may say he had a nightmare, but I think it was an epiphany. The angel that came prompted that same epiphany that Peter Docter had discovered. Fear had to go. The angel told Joseph quite clearly, "Do not fear. Do not fear. What you're experiencing is a miracle of connection, a miracle of love that you can't quite comprehend. You can't even begin to understand. This is not something you can cut off or constrain or build a wall to keep yourself safe. This inbreaking reality, this idea that God is present with us, present in all of the emotions and all of the feels, is a reality that will continue to shape humanity long beyond this moment. Today, I think the message to us is the same. We can't cut off those sad and dark feelings that we might have. We can't bottle them up and push them down. We can't restrain them. We live in a complicated network of feelings and of connections. We live in a complex neighborhood. Just like we can't divorce ourselves from our neighbors, we can't divorce ourselves from our feelings. We live in community. And walls inside and walls outside cannot stand. Instead, the very notion of God coming among us is an invitation for integration, for wholeness. To bring both joy and sadness together is a bittersweet delight that helps us appreciate who we are and that we have life. Instead, we must live a wholehearted life that's embracing all of the human experience. We can't be tempted to wall ourselves off as if we could keep ourselves safe. Walls never keep us safe. You can't bottle up your feelings. You can't push away sadness. Robert Frost, of course, brilliantly illustrates that in his poem. Something there is that does not love a wall, that sends the frozen ground swell under it, that spills the upper boulders in the sun, and makes gaps. Even two can pass abreast. The work of hunters is another thing. I've come after them and made repair, where they have left not one stone on a stone. But they would have the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs. The gaps, I mean. No one has seen them made or heard them made, but at spring mending time, we find them there. I let my neighbor know beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line and see the wall between us once again. We keep the wall between us as we go, to each the boulders that have fallen to each. And some are loaves, and some so nearly balls. We have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. We wear our fingers rough with handling them. Oh, just another kind of outdoor game. One on a side. It comes to a little more. There where it is we do not need the wall. He is all pine and I'm all apple orchard. My apple trees will never get across and eat the cones under his pines, I tell him. He only says, good fences make good neighbors. Spring is the mischief in me, and I wonder if I could put a notion in his head. Why do they make good neighbors? Isn't it where there are cows? But here there are no cows. Before I build a wall, I'd ask to know what I'm walling in or walling out. To whom was I like to give offense? Something there is that does not love a wall, that wants it down. I would say elves to him, but it's not elves exactly. I'd rather he said it himself. I see him there, bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top in each hand, like an old stone savage armed. He moves in darkness, as it seems to me, not of woods only, and the shade of trees. The impulse to create walls is as old as humanity. But there's something in nature that does not love a wall. We cannot put a wall in our heart to segregate happy feelings and sad feelings. We cannot establish a boundary between the feelings of delight and the feelings of despair. The human experience demands that we encapsulate and hold on to all of them. But the promise today is that God is with us, present through all of it, present in the pain and in the joy. And it's a miracle. It's a miracle like a tiny child crying, a cry that reminds us that we need each other. We need God to provide us with the deep connection that's in the midst of us. So in this service, I invite you to be kind to yourself, to slowly allow joy and sadness to become friends. They might learn from one another, so that you too might experience deeper peace, deeper connection within yourself, the neighborhood that is your own heart, and then with the neighborhood that you walk through day in and day out. Amen.